July 22, 2001, 7:18 p.m., South River Falls Overlook, Shenandoah National Park, Virginia. Searchers move through wet grass and broken fern stems. A keychain shaped like a maple leaf lies in a shallow runnel. A radio call cuts out, then returns. A single question drives the line forward. What happened to naturalist Lily Harper, 27, who planned to leave for a weekend visit and never arrived? 2 years later, a sealed recording would force investigators to redraw their timeline and their map. One truck, 2 witnesses, and silence on the radio. The search begins at tree line, then drops toward the creek. Footprints overlap, some sliding downhill, some abruptly turning. A ranger marks a shoe size and measures stride with a tape. Another flags tire impressions near the turnout. The pattern is wide lug, uncommon for the paved park loops. A field medic notes a scuffed watch face and the maple leaf keychain. The items go into separate bags. No one says it, but the code on the air says enough. Lily's cabin sits off Fisher's Gap, a 10-minute drive from the overlook. Her pickup is in the driveway with an overnight bag behind the seat. The door shows no pry marks. A clipboard on the table lists route segments for the week. Her last sign-in ends at 6:32 p.m. The clock on the wall keeps steady time. The phone line is live. The room is orderly, but something is wrong and immediate. Witness logs place a blue and white Chevrolet K5 Blazer near milepost 63 before sunset. The driver parked across 2 spaces, then stepped down toward the river. A maintenance badge was visible on a lanyard. Both witnesses thought it was nothing. It was summer. The lot was crowded. The radio traffic that hour is patchy, with gaps that later matter. Shenandoah is a place people trust, until the distance between help and harm narrows. Trails twist, and snow fences become screens. At night, the overlooks grow quiet. Tonight, the team divides into 5 groups and pushes through the dark. They will find a boundary where the trail ends and a story begins, but not the ending anyone wants. Who is the man the Rangers met and then released? Caroline West was 42, a project manager from Raleigh who planned everything to the hour. Her daughter, Jenna West, 22, lived at home while finishing a certification in GIS. Jenna's closest friend, Sophia Delgado, 23, worked night shifts at a logistics hub. On June 15, 2001, the 3 drove north for a weekend on Skyline Drive. They checked into Blue Ridge Lodge at 6:42 p.m., room 509 on the west wing. The reservation showed 2 nights, paid in cash and card. Caroline called her husband at 9:06 p.m. The call lasted 1 minute, 9 seconds. Her notebook listed a loop hike, White Oak Canyon to Cedar Run, then dinner at a diner in Lurie. Jenna texted a coworker at 9:31 p.m. about a Monday shift swap. Sophia charged a disposable camera at the lobby stand at 9:47 p.m. The room key was scanned at 9:52 p.m. No entries after that. Lily Harper, 27, worked seasonally as a naturalist for adult education programs. Her base cabin sat off Fisher's Gap. She logged field hours, filed route sheets, and ran a loop along the meadow most mornings. On July 21, she texted a colleague at 5:12 p.m. about a weekend visit to Harrisonburg. She signed out at 6:32 p.m. and packed a small bag. Her truck never left the driveway. Evan Riker, 37, handled maintenance at the lodge on rotating contracts. He patched roofs, cleared drains, and set chaise lounges by the pool. He rented a room above the restaurant. He often drove an old blue and white Chevrolet K5 Blazer with wide lug tires. He preferred river pullouts along the South Fork when he was off the clock. Staff noted the backpack he carried everywhere. He said it held tools. 2 clerks remembered Riker helping Caroline fix a jammed ice machine around 8:10 p.m. He smiled, made a joke, and left. A server recalled Sophia asking for extra napkins at 8:46 p.m. A guest complained to the desk that someone knocked late saying there was a ceiling leak. The note read, "Maintenance check," with no signature. If you follow detailed casework and verified timelines, consider subscribing so you don't miss key updates. Everyone looked ordinary in daylight, until the night turned and the timeline fractured. On June 16, 2001, room 509 at Blue Ridge Lodge logged its last key scan at 9:52 p.m. Housekeeping had restocked towels at 5:18 p.m. A maintenance ticket for a ceiling check was opened at 7:41 p.m., then closed at 7:59 p.m. Caroline West paid for dinner in Lurie at 8:37 p.m., receipt number 11873, 2 entries and coffee. Jenna West texted a coworker at 9:31 p.m. about a Monday shift swap. Sofia Delgado purchased a disposable camera battery at 9:47 p.m. in the lobby. The hall camera caught the three entering 509 at 9:51 p.m. No further camera hits follow. A guest across the hall reported a knock at 10:56 p.m. A man's voice said, "Maintenance, ceiling leak." The guest did not open the door. At 11:03 p.m., a clerk wrote a note, 509 late call about noise, resolved. The note carried no initials. At 11:18 p.m., the night auditor balanced the register and printed a batch total. The security camera on the west exit flickered, then dropped frames for 21 minutes. At 11:20 p.m., the parking lot camera recorded Caroline's red Pontiac Grand Prix leaving the west wing. The angle hid the driver. Headlights stayed off until the car reached the far lane. A sedan pulled in 2 minutes later and idled. No plate was visible. At 11:36 p.m., the hall camera caught a shadow crossing outside 509. The figure stayed below the peephole, then moved out of frame. The next morning, June 17th, the desk attempted a courtesy call at 9:05 a.m. No answer. Housekeeping found wet towels and a dry shower floor at 10:12 a.m. The beds were made. A folded park map lay on the desk with a route for White Oak Canyon. A receipt from a Harrisonburg convenience store, timestamp 6:14 a.m., listed gas and a phone card. The store camera later showed a person in a ball cap paying in cash. The cap had a small Blue Ridge Lodge pin. At 12:04 p.m., the lodge office received a call from a payphone in Elkton. The caller asked, "Did maintenance check 509 last night?" The line clicked dead. The clerk logged the call without a name. By evening, relatives began calling. The Pontiac did not return. The room remained paid through June 17th and was not checked out. Who moved the Pontiac before dawn and why keep the headlights dark? The first tips pushed investigators toward two men from Harrisonburg with drug priors. A roadside stop on June 18, 2001, found acrylic fibers in their sedan. A lab note said the strands were consistent with material taken from a vehicle trunk. Detectives asked about late-night travel on Skyline Drive. Both men denied it. They were already in county custody on unrelated charges. By June 22, a rumor spread that the case was close to solved. A deputy told a reporter off camera that our main players are in jail. It was premature and it was wrong. The acrylic fibers looked persuasive until a second technician flagged a control failure. A tow strap used on the suspect sedan showed the same fiber mix. Chain of custody records showed the strap had been used days earlier on an unrelated car fire. The match could be cross-contamination. The lab pulled the report for review. The lead agent froze any move to charge. The public never heard the retraction. At the same time, a map photocopy arrived at the field office in Culper. The envelope was postmarked June 24 from Elkton. The copy showed a hand-drawn line from Highway 340 to a bend on Rapidan Fire Road. At the end was a small X and 4 printed words, "We had our fun." The tone was calculated. The note pushed searchers to a remote logging spur. The first pass found nothing. 2 separate witnesses reported a blue and white Chevrolet K5 Blazer near milepost 63 on June 16, before sunset. The driver parked crooked and walked toward the river. A maintenance badge hung from a lanyard. Neither witness wrote down a plate. A park ranger later photographed wide lug tire impressions at a turnout. The print pattern was uncommon for the paved loops. The description matched the truck driven by Evan Riker. On July 20th, 2 rangers contacted a man sunbathing by the South Fork. He gave the name Evan and handed over a small bag of marijuana. They seized the bag, warned him, and let him go. The contact card noted the same blazer and the same badge. No one linked him to room 509 that day. Why did the map steer the search away from the place that mattered most? On July 19, 2001, a hunter reported a burned vehicle off a spur from Rapidan Fire Road. Deputies followed a rutted track 0.6 of a mile from the gate. The car was a red Pontiac Grand Prix registered to Caroline West. Heat had scorched pine branches high above the chassis. The ignition was off. The driver's seat was pushed back farther than Caroline's usual setting noted on a service receipt. The keys were missing. The trunk release showed fresh tool marks. Fire investigators found clear evidence of accelerant. A lab later confirmed petroleum distillates in soil under the rear bumper. Inside the trunk, 2 victims were recovered with bindings still in place. Identification would confirm Caroline West and Sofia Delgado. The scene log used neutral codes for condition. There was no trace of Jenna West on site. Items were scattered in a narrow arc downwind from the car. A white sneaker with a torn lace. A navy sweater with a single pine needle melted into the fabric. A disposable camera with a warm, bulged plastic casing. The camera went to evidence intact. Technicians recovered several frames. The last images showed the 3 women in room 509 on June 16 at night, relaxed and getting ready for bed. The timestamp was consistent with the lobby kiosk clock. After that, the roll ended with a blank strip. A ranger measured wide lug tire impressions near the turnoff. The pattern matched earlier photos from the milepost 63 turnout. The print width fit the profile of a Chevrolet K5 Blazer. Plaster casts were taken and labeled. A second team canvassed the approach road for drag marks and found none. The Grand Prix likely arrived under its own power before the fire. At 7:03 p.m., a field medic logged a watch with a cracked face, recovered 10 yards from the passenger side. The band matched Lily Harper's model, but her unit was accounted for at her cabin. The watch belonged to Sophia. The crystal crack aligned with a scrape noted on her suitcase handle found later at the lodge. The link tied the room to the fire road. By nightfall, the command post listed 1 confirmed vehicle, 2 identified victims, and 1 missing woman. 5 days later, a new envelope arrived with a different map and 4 printed words. Who drew the second map and why change the route? Lily Harper's work life was routine and documented. She filed route sheets, taught adults how to read trail signs, and logged miles around Fisher's Gap. On July 21, 2001, she signed out at 6:32 p.m. for a weekend trip to Harrisonburg. Her pickup stayed in the driveway. The bag behind the seat held a change of clothes, a toothbrush, and a folded road map. Inside the cabin, a clipboard listed Monday's program outline. The door showed no pry marks. The deadbolt operated smoothly. The phone line was live. A coffee mug sat clean on the rack. South River Falls Overlook was a 10-minute drive. On July 22 at 7:18 p.m., searchers moved through grass pressed low toward the creek. Broken stems pointed downslope. A small keychain shaped like a maple leaf lay in a wet runnel. A scuffed watch crystal reflected light near it. Separate evidence bags were sealed. A ranger measured footprints with a tape and marked a shoe size. The spacing showed running, then a slide. The pattern repeated at 2 flagged points. At the overlook turnout, a ranger photographed wide lug tire impressions. The lug shape matched earlier photos taken at milepost 63. The print width fit a Chevrolet K5 Blazer. Casts were made and marked by time and GPS. On the guardrail post, a transfer smear showed blue paint above a dent. The height matched a Blazer bumper. A second team swept the pullout with a metal detector. They recovered a broken sunglasses arm and a torn lanyard clip. The clip type matched those used for maintenance badges at Blue Ridge Lodge. Back at Lily's cabin, investigators found an index card taped inside the kitchen cabinet. It listed emergency radio channels and the park dispatch number. The card had a handwritten note, Radio Dead Zones, South River, Lewis Falls Switchback. A field notebook on the table had a quick scribble dated July 20th, maple leaf keyring, lost. The ring at the overlook was tested for prints. None were viable. The scene suggested interruption, movement toward the creek, and speed. The items connected Lily's usual routes, the overlook, and the tire casts. The missing piece was who controlled the minute when her plan changed. What did the torn lanyard clip once carry that night? There was no survivor to interview, so investigators built the narrative from records. Park Dispatch released radio traffic from July 22, 2001, under FOIA. The tape showed dead air from 7:03 to 7:19 p.m. The outage matched Lily Harper's handwritten note about South River dead zones. A second FOIA request produced maintenance work orders from Blue Ridge Lodge. One page listed, ceiling moisture check, West Wing, opened June 16 at 7:41 p.m., closed at 7:59 p.m. The initials were ER. Evan Riker signed other tickets with the same two letters. The lodge phone log showed a 10:56 p.m. complaint for late knock, 509. The clerk who wrote it could not explain the missing initials. A separate binder listed badge issues. On June 10, a replacement lanyard clip was issued to Riker. The clip type and size matched the broken piece from South River Falls Overlook. Telephone records from the Elkton payphone near the old grocery showed a 12:04 p.m. call to the lodge on June 17. The local exchange carrier provided a billing image with coin box counts and line tests. The call length was under 10 seconds. The same payphone handled 3 outgoing calls on June 24, the day the first map was postmarked. 2 went to information. 1 had no completion record. Evidence control traced the duct tape used at the burned Pontiac site to a regional lot number. The manufacturer reported the lot shipped to 3 stores around Lurie. Surveillance from one store on June 14 showed a man with a maintenance badge buying tape, rope, and utility gloves. The video did not capture a face. The receipt was cash. An analyst reviewed the map photocopy that said "We had our fun." Faint yellow tracking dots indicated a specific printer model. The pattern fit unit sold at an office store in Harrisonburg that spring. Transaction logs for toner and service matched a narrow window. One of the serial numbers linked to a machine serviced at the lodge office in May. A final request pulled the lodge's internal incident binder. A metal tab marked summer held a single sticky note, 509 ceiling, check again later. Someone penciled OK now, but left the line for initials blank. It was the only blank line on the page. What else did the yellow dots on the map reveal about its path? The case split along 2 tracks. One said the Harrisonburg pair were responsible because of acrylic fibers and vague jailhouse talk. The other said the evidence was planted or contaminated and the map was theater. The lab's control failure forced a rethink. The tow strap carried identical fiber mix. The strap had touched a burned vehicle days earlier. That meant the sedan fibers proved nothing. Prosecutors paused. The public never heard the pause, only the early rumor that the case was solved. Investigators returned to the details no one wanted to chase. The maintenance, ceiling leak approach on June 16 at Blue Ridge Lodge. The 10:56 p.m. complaint. The missing initials. The west exit camera that dropped frames after 11:15 p.m. The Pontiac leaving without headlights at 11:20 p.m. The Elkton payphone call at 12:04 p.m. The pattern had control and timing. It also had a signature, access to rooms, tools, and routine. Analysts built a clean sequence. A maintenance pretext grants entry. The victims are bound and separated to manage resistance. The scene is cleaned in parts. The Pontiac departs before dawn and reaches Rapidan Fire Road. The fire is set and accelerant spreads under the trunk. The letter and map arrive to validate the wrong suspects and waste flight hours. It is a simple plan with careful staging. It depends on one person being invisible at his own workplace. The Blazer track pushed the second sequence. Wide lug prints at milepost 63 and the overlook turnout match a Chevrolet K5 profile. A paint transfer on the guardrail sits at Blazer bumper height. A torn lanyard clip at South River matches Blue Ridge Lodge badge hardware. A replacement clip was issued to Evan Riker on June 10. He was contacted by Rangers on July 20 and released with a warning. He kept the badge on a lanyard. He kept the Blazer. A senior agent flagged a strategic error. The first map had moved resources east while the real scene sat west. The second map tried to redirect again with a different route line. Both envelopes were postmarked Elkton. Both used the same printer model dots. The service logs pointed back to the lodge office machine. If the printer points to the lodge, who stood at that keypad and pressed copy? The tire casts from milepost 63 and South River matched a wide lug profile used on older Chevrolet K5 Blazers. DMV records for Page and Warren counties showed only 2 active registrations in that configuration. One belonged to a retired orchard owner in Bentonville. He kept the truck in a pole barn and had a clean alibi. The second belonged to Evan Riker, the maintenance contractor at Blue Ridge Lodge. He listed the lodge as his mailing address. Investigators photographed the Blazer in the lodge lot on July 18. The tread blocks and shoulder sipes matched the casts within tolerance. A dent on the front bumper sat at the same height as the guardrail paint transfer. Blue flake samples were consistent with the smear at the overlook. Riker said the dent came from a parking mishap weeks earlier. He provided no repair records. A convenience store near Lurie produced surveillance from June 14. A man with a maintenance badge bought duct tape, rope, and utility gloves with cash. The camera angle hid the face, but the lanyard clip matched Blue Ridge Lodge hardware. The duct tape lot number matched residue at the burned Pontiac site. A store clerk remembered the Blazer idling outside with the rear window down. Telephone company records placed 2 short calls from the Elkton payphone on June 24. One went to directory assistance. One had no completion record. The envelope with the first map was postmarked the same day. Printer tracking dots on the map photocopy matched a model serviced at the lodge office in May. Service logs listed a jam cleared by the night auditor on June 12. The auditor remembered Riker standing nearby with a stack of copies. Rangers documented a contact with Riker on July 20 by the South Fork. He identified himself, handed over a small bag of marijuana, and received a warning. The contact card noted the same Blazer and badge. At 7:18 p.m. on July 22, searchers found the maple leaf keychain near the creek. The timing forced a hard question about missed opportunities. A farm road camera in Warren County then caught a blue and white Blazer crossing a low-water bridge before dawn on June 17. Who sat behind that wheel when the bridge camera clicked once and then failed? On July 24, 2001, detectives located Evan Riker at a clothing-optional resort outside Charlottesville. He was detained without incident at 12:42 p.m. He received Miranda warnings and signed a written waiver. The interview ran just over 6 hours. Agents presented the tire casts, the guardrail paint transfer, the Elkton payphone records, and the printer tracking dots. They added the lanyard clip match and the duct tape lot number. Riker sat forward, asked for water, and began to talk. He said he used a maintenance pretext at Blue Ridge Lodge on June 16. He said he separated the victims and controlled the room. He said he drove Caroline West's Pontiac out before dawn on June 17. He admitted setting a fire on a spur off Rapidan Fire Road. He acknowledged mailing a photocopied map to pull resources away from the west side of the park. He used neutral terms and avoided details. Agents kept the questions narrow and recorded every answer. A search warrant for the Blazer issued at 5:18 p.m. The inventory listed tape consistent with the residue at the Pontiac site, utility gloves, and rope. It also listed a maintenance badge on a broken lanyard. Soil samples from the wheel wells matched the logging spur. A separate warrant covered his room above the restaurant. Technicians documented a stack of copies and toner consistent with the lodge office machine. That night, the Commonwealth charged Riker with 3 counts of first-degree murder for Caroline West, Jenna West, and Sofia Delgado. Additional counts included abduction, burglary, and arson. The charging affidavit referenced the confession, the casts, the printer dots, and the payphone timeline. A magistrate denied bond. The next morning, Riker appeared by video from the county jail and asked for appointed counsel. During a follow-up interview with counsel present, Riker tried to set terms. He asked about placement near family and a federal facility. He also suggested a benefit for relatives in exchange for more information. Prosecutors refused to negotiate conditions tied to facts. He confirmed he sent the second map because they were looking the wrong way. He said he could point to the exact turnout near South River if they drove. When he stood to leave, he looked at the floor and asked for one final ride. The first hearing came fast. On July 26, 2001, a district judge denied bond. Defense counsel signaled mental health issues and reserved all objections. A competency screening followed that fall. Doctors found Evan Riker understood the proceedings and could assist counsel. The case moved to a grand jury. On October 3, indictments issued for 3 counts of first-degree murder, plus abduction, burglary, arson, and use of a firearm. Pretrial motions filled 2002. Defense challenged the tire casts, the printer tracking dots, and the Elkton payphone records. The court allowed the casts and the dots with expert foundations. The payphone records came in as business records. The duct tape lot report survived a reliability challenge. The judge excluded one lab memo that referenced the early acrylic fiber error to avoid confusion. Jury selection began in March 2003. The Commonwealth opened with the lodge timeline and the maintenance pretext. Jurors saw the West Wing camera gap, the 11:20 p.m. Pontiac exit, and the bridge camera single frame. They heard about the blazer dent height and the guardrail transfer. A clerk placed Riker near the office copier during a paper jam in June. A technician explained the yellow tracking dots that matched the lodge machine serviced in May. The defense argued contamination and suggestion. They attacked cross-contamination at the tow yard and the missing initials on the 10:56 p.m. complaint. They raised mental health themes through experts, citing obsessive thoughts and compulsive behaviors. They said the confession was thin and avoided detail. The prosecutor answered with controlled facts: room access through a maintenance pretext, separation to manage movement, a pre-dawn drive, a staged fire, and letters timed to misdirect. After 5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned guilty on all counts. The penalty phase focused on planning, staging, and risk to the public. The defense asked for life and placement where treatment was available. The jury recommended death under state law then in effect. The judge accepted the recommendation and entered judgment in late 2003. Riker later entered a federal plea for the Lily Harper case, receiving life without release in a separate court. Appeals would follow on both tracks, but one question would not leave the record: could the second crime have been stopped? Appeals began within weeks of sentencing. In 2004, Evan Riker challenged the printer tracking dots, the payphone business records, and the tire cast methodology. The state court affirmed the verdicts in 2005, finding proper foundations and sufficient corroboration. A habeas petition raised claims about contamination at the tow yard and the missing initials on the 10:56 p.m. complaint. The trial judge held an evidentiary hearing and denied relief. The state Supreme Court declined review. Federal habeas followed and was dismissed in 2009. The federal life sentence in the Lily Harper case stood on a separate plea and separate record. Over time, the policy questions outlived the filings. Why did a contact card note the blazer and the badge on July 20th, yet no alert went out to the lodge that night? Why did the first map steer aircraft away from the west side when a field team had already cast tires there? The Park Service added repeaters to cover South River dead zones in 2006. Dispatch upgraded logging. The lodge replaced its copier and instituted a sign-out control for lanyards and tools. Evidence units retired tow straps that had seen multiple fire scenes. Training added a module on secondary transfer. Families chose public remembrance over press. A field program launched in 2007 under a new name to honor Lily Harper's work with adult learners. Scholarship sent women into backcountry courses with instructors trained to read risk as well as trail signs. A roadside marker noted the date the Pontiac was found and listed 3 names: Caroline West, Jenna West, and Sofia Delgado. No dates were added for returns. In 2021, Virginia abolished the death penalty. Riker's federal life sentence kept him in custody regardless of state policy. The state judgment remained a record of what a jury concluded about planning, control, and misdirection. The file closed in a legal sense, but agency reviews continued. A final internal memo, released years later, described the lesson in one line: do not confuse a staged signal for a path to truth. The last unresolved line sits between 2 maps, 2 postmarks, and 1 printer.